All right, all right. Welcome, YouTube. How are you doing? Hopefully all is well. We'll allow a few more folks to come in, and we'll go ahead and get the show started. How's everyone doing on this beautiful Saturday afternoon or evening in some parts? And maybe, let's see here. Let me go ahead and turn this down for a little bit so we can focus. All right, all right. All right, so let's see what we have here. I'm just going to go ahead and fix some things. All right, so we have a few people in the house. Welcome to tonight's live stream or this evening's live stream. I'm your host, Rebound, and we are back at it again. So let's see here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to share a few videos, examining the world that we live in and the people in this world, right? And after that, I guess we'll go ahead and do an after show. So I wanted to hop on here a little earlier today just because I am fasting and I don't want to, be starving while I am on tonight's, at our regular schedule time. So I felt that it would be best to hop on earlier. Now, if the sound quality is good, just let me know in the comment section. And then, we'll go ahead and start the show. So I see Still Human is in the chat. How are you? We have Sally Jones in the chat. How are you? Celestial Wonders in the house. How are you? Millennial Lux. Luann Marie is in the house. How are you all? Hopefully you all are doing well. So I'll go ahead and get the okay for the sound quality. I don't want to sound like a chipmunk or far away. And then we'll go ahead and, have a discussion. I guess while we'll wait on that, we'll go ahead and put some music on in the background. And let's go ahead and get this lo-fi going. There we go. And I'll wait for the okay to see if you all can hear me quite clearly. Okay, so Sally says the sound is good. Okay, let's see if we have anyone else. Okay, perfect. Molino says the sound is good. Perfect. All right, so let me go ahead and turn this off. It's lo-fi music. It's nice to set the tone. Okay, so here we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so how long am I fasting? So just till tomorrow. I'll stop at 9 a.m. So I'm trying this new thing out where I'm going to see at least one day out of the week where I just have liquids and like no heavy food, solid food, and we'll see how my body adapts to it. So I'm a part of a prayer group, and so we fasted earlier this week, and so I figured let me keep this going for a little bit. So I'm always trying to find ways to detoxify the body, which is why I think this fast will be great. All right. So for those of you new to the channel, I'm the guy who discusses narcissistic personality disorder, right? As well as a plethora of other things. But for those of you who have been following the channel long enough, you know that I question the reality that we live in, right? So it seems like once I was brought into this world, I had a very traumatic experience. However, these traumatic experiences are what led me to understanding that the reality that we live in is much more complex than what we think. And a lot of us who are empathic, creative, able to critically think, loving, compassionate, we're much different from our surroundings. And after going down the rabbit hole of understanding what narcissistic personality disorder was, there began to be other rabbit holes that I went down, such as the topic that we will discuss today, which is NPCs, right? So NPC stands for non-player characters. And it's likened, this reality or this matrix system that we live in is likened to a video game or a movie where you have your background characters. And these characters really don't drift away from their script, and they support this matrix system that we're in, right? So if we use this crisis of what's going on now, we can see how the collective almost supports this narrative, right? Of there being some bug floating around. And, it seems like society always sides with the control system. And for those of us who have awakened, for those of us who've kind of been ostracized or misfits to society, we wonder why there is almost this collective consciousness, right? Where it feels as if society, they can't, they have to conform, right? And they lack individuality. And we can't understand why, right? And, while we've been here, we've had such a hard time trying to adapt, such a hard time trying to fit in. And I believe it's because we almost have two consciousness going on, right? So we have a collective consciousness, and I liken this to the hive mind. And then we also have an individual consciousness where, for those of us who have been scapegoated in this world, we're able to tap into individuality. And because of that, we're shunned by this society. So a lot of us have gone through things such as narcissistic abuse. There's also topics such as gang stalking, where because we don't fit in, or for the simple reason that we don't fit in, we are targeted, right? So we have been ostracized by individuals in our family. We may have a hard time dating. We may have a hard time at work. And the questions that we seem to ask ourselves it makes other people uncomfortable when we say these things out loud. And it could be because once again there are two different consciousness going on, right? So one second, you all right. So yes, so I wanted to go ahead and show a few video clips, and then we can go ahead and get the show started. And yes, so going to what Christy is saying, right? So so I'm the guy, I really do have a biblical perspective, and I feel that it's important, right? When it comes to trying to understand this matrix system that we live in, right? So could this be some type of purgatory, right? And for those of us who are Christians, and thank you, Christy, for bringing the Christian perspective in. For those of us who are Christian, I believe that this matrix system that we're brought into is to help us tap into the essence of who we truly are, which is why we go through the trials and tribulations in our lives. And these things are meant to force us to awaken and to see reality for what it is so that we're not deceived by it, right? So we know that this matrix system really thrives on fear and control and conformity. And so if we're deceived by it, if we view the majority as individuals such as ourselves, then we may never get the chance to awaken and would thus fall for the trap, right? So a great example of this could be the inoculation, right? So because everybody else is doing it, we feel that we have to do it too, even if it can be detrimental to our health, right? And what's interesting about this reality that we live in is everything is inverted, right? So the thing that's actually deemed as a remedy for your health is actually the opposite. And that goes with a lot of other things, right? So we have the political system. We have someone in office now, um, which wants to create the illusion that they are virtuous, right? And so they do this virtue signaling. However, that may not be the case. However, these people are propped up to positions of power. And no matter what they do, it seems like we can't get them out of office, right? And this is why I feel that we have so many problems within the world because this collective consciousness or this hive mind, this is their reality. And so once again, going back to likening this reality as a movie script, as a video game, the NPCs aren't meant to wake up, right? They're just performing their design roles. But for those of us who are children of God, we are designed to wake up. And it's kind of this spiritual evolution that we have to go through to connect back with God. And a lot of us we don't do it, right? Because we perceive this reality as 100% real, but this reality is only a fragment of what the real reality actually is. And this is where you bring in the spiritual side. So let me go ahead and look at some of these comments. So we have Michael in the house. I also saw someone else in the house. Heidi's in the house. All right. Okay, so let's see here. 90% of people you see are not human. There are only a small amount of humans. Most are androids and others are something else. And yes, so honestly, when I first stumbled across this, it made me extremely uncomfortable. Yes, and soulless creatures, right? So could it be that we live, in a reality where the majority of people don't have internal thought, don't have souls, right? And they don't have, the essence of what we believe makes us human beings, right? And it's interesting because we know that the devil imitates reality or God's design. And could this be the reason why we have the concept of video games, right? Of movies. And we just don't realize that we're actually living in a similar system, right? So let me go ahead and show some examples of, I guess we can call them these non-player characters, right? So we have the non-player characters, the NPCs, and then we have the PCs, which is going to be your player character. So these are going to be those of us who are empathic, those of us who have internal dialogue, those of us who are able to critically think, right? So let me go ahead and share some stuff. So we know since the beginning of the pandemic, there has been this phenomenon of the Karens and Darrens of the world. And when we really examine these people, they're quite strange. They're very robotic in nature. A lot of them tend to be control freaks. A lot of them tend to be very angry. And it's almost as if after 2020 happened, there's a malfunctioning in their programming, right? Where a lot of what they do doesn't really make sense. It's almost as if these types of individuals are breaking down. And I guess we can throw the cluster Bs in there too. So the narcissist, the psychopath, the sociopath, the borderline. And could this be tied into the great awakening or the apocalypse that the Bible refers to? So let me go ahead and just show some examples of what I believe are NPCs, and then we'll go ahead and get another content creator's perspective of the reality that we live in, followed by another video, and then we'll go ahead and do an after show. So let me go ahead and pull this up, and shout out to all of you in the chat. It is a pleasure to have all of you here. And yes, welcome back. Okay. So I know this is a topic that we discussed earlier in the start of myself creating this channel, but I wanted to go ahead and go back to it because I feel that it is very important. We for those of us who have awakened, right, who have had this spiritual awakening, we understand that something is just not right with the world or people within the world. And could this be why we have all these problems in society, right? So a lot of people like to argue, for example, here's a good example. Trump is the savior, right? So Trump's going to come in and he's going to fix everything, and the world is going to go through this massive awakening and things will go back to normal, right? But when we study the individual, when we study these NPCs, could we really get that type of world with these types living in it, especially if they are the majority, right? And so I believe this dimension, right? These types of individuals, they're programmed to fit into the deception. And once again, if we buy their train of thought, then once again we can be deceived by it. So let me go ahead and share this. Let me go ahead and speed it up. So we'll show this clip first, and then we'll get a breakdown of what reality could possibly be.
Call the judge and get some fudge. Are you okay?
Nope.
No?
Let me slow this down.
Maybe?
Well, where's your MD?
My dick?
Okay, let me speed that part up. My bad.
What are you doing that for? Hey, why are you doing that? You've attacked my son's car 3 times. You pulled your sticker off it.
Are you quite legal to park over somebody's drive?
Is it right? Don't get too close, please, because I don't want to breathe the same air as you.
Well, you are, unfortunately.
Well, it's Corona if you don't mind, so keep back off.
You back off.
You stop vandalising my fucking son's car.
You're a bully. A thief.
So what's interesting about this clip here is, he's asking her, a simple question is, why are you messing with my son's car? Why are you around my car? And she is, she's the aggressor in this situation. You can see that she has a stick in her hand or a pole in her hand, which we can liken to a weapon. Yet she's accusing him of attacking her. And this is something that the narcissist does, right? So this is where we get into, the example of projecting, right? So the narcissist will project who they are onto their victim of abuse, right? And a lot of us who have had narcissistic parents, we just can't understand this phenomenon. So as they're abusing us, they're saying that we're abusing them, right? And could this be a part of the NPC programming? So let me go ahead and show some more examples.
Get over him.
You're like stealing from your workplace.
I'm stealing.
You're a criminal.
I'm a criminal. That's good evidence, isn't it? Just keep.
And by the way, I should understand. And to get hot, I got.
Let me slow this one down because I really want you guys to listen to this. All right. So in my opinion, I believe that Joe Biden is likened to an NPC, right? So I do believe that he is a covert narcissist. So I believe that narcissism and NPC are kind of one and the same. But as he's gotten older, it's like something is going on with his programming. So we could say, okay, well, he has dementia, right? But even if he does have dementia, look at what he says here is quite interesting.
I got hairy legs that turn that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
All right. So you can see here that nothing of what this man says makes sense, right? So he goes from hairs on his legs to roaches to kids jumping on his lap, right? And what's interesting about this dimension or this reality that we live in, these are the type of individuals that society will prop up. And when we look at even within American history, a lot of presidents have had this similar characteristic, right? Where they lack leadership qualities, yet they are placed in positions of power. And it seems, for those of us who do have souls, this is something that really bothers us because we just don't understand how the system will prop individuals such as this guy up. But yet it does. And, we can even see this in the workplace, right, where our managers or the owners of the companies have a similar personality to that of Joe Biden, or maybe let's just say our narcissistic father, right? Yet these people, once again, they are propped up as leaders in the community, and I guess you can say they keep the dysfunction going, right? But once again, they're great actors, they're puppets, right? So I do believe that there's definitely someone pulling the strings that we don't see when it comes to this character here. But yes, so once again, I think that biting is a good example of this NPC phenomenon.
And I've loved kids.
Okay, so let me start this one over.
Neighborhood, and you are not welcome.
That's why I need to be here.
They always do that demonic scream. I don't I don't know why, right? But and then once again, could NPCs be some type of demonic possession, right? Now, if it is demonic possession, that means that the majority of the people on the planet are walking around demon possessed. So that's also, it's very curious. Let me go ahead and continue.
You need Jesus, ma'am.
Hi, darling.
Someone has been in my room and taken my bears away from my room.
I don't think so, darling. Who would do that?
And then, I always say you know them by their eyes. So look at his eyes here, right? So it's like, once again, we can liken them to characters, right? So it's almost as if there's no soul behind this, right? There's a lot of confusion going on. And even though that these type of individuals are able to form sentences, there still seems to be some type of lack of understanding, which is interesting.
Who could possibly do that? Who's the beer thief? You're the beer thief.
Is that yours?
Yeah, but we don't know how to do it.
Oh, you need some help?
You know how to do it? How to do it?
Yeah, this is our stuff.
This is yours?
Yes.
Wait a minute. This is ours.
No, it is. This is all ours. All of it. The chairs, the bag, this is all our stuff. Mike.
And so you see how they are confused, right? So these people have been in our society since the beginning of time. And it's interesting how they can maneuver through society, right? And I do believe that since 2020 occurred, which could be the real 2012, there is some type of glitch. Could we call this the glitch in the matrix? There's some type of breakdown going on. So these two ladies, they walked up to this canopy, and they're working on it as if it's their own canopy, and it's not, right? So they're very confused. And once again, it's like the NPC can do the most basic things of life, right? They can drive cars, they can get up and go to work every day, they can build things, but once again, there's something that they're missing. Something's quite not right with these individuals. And some people may argue, well, it could be drugs, it could be medication, it could be frequencies. Um, but I think that there's something else going on here.
My kids. Yep, that's my kids. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's okay. We'll let it slide. But I'm glad I made it in time.
I'm not making it slide. I'm telling you.
No, no, step away from my shit. How about that?
You know what? I will, and then I'm going to get that camera in the grass. I don't like that.
And once again, they have this similar look in their face.
How you doing, sir?
Okay, so I'm gonna skip this
Dude.
one.
Here a few years ago, I was just
Yeah, you are a weirdo.
shouting at kids.
Those are my friends.
Those are children.
No, they're not.
You're cussing at them.
That is me.
You are weird.
Yeah, you're a weird
You don't even know.
motherfucker.
You don't even know
better
who
not be
you
a
are.
snitch, because I'll tell fucking
Oh, I'm a
Carl
snitch.
Bismarck.
I'm a snitch.
I know who you are.
Call Carl. I don't even know
He's
who
dead.
he is. So how you gonna?
All right, so you know what's interesting about this clip here, right? Obviously, we can tell that something is not quite right with this woman. And I liken her to a brother-in-law that I had, and this is what a lot of us of narcissistic abuse have gone through, right? When we have been scapegoated by these types of people, right? Having a conversation or argument with them, it gets you nowhere. And a lot of times the argument will just not make any sense, which is what will shock us. And this is how the narcissist will gain control over the argument, right? So we can liken this to word salad or crazy making, but this is what these type of individuals do, right? And then once again, even when it comes to examining the concept of NPCs, for those of us who have dealt with narcissists, right, and we have asked them deep questions, we never really get well thought out answers, right? A lot of their answers are very surface level. It's like there's no depth to these individuals. And I don't know, it's quite bizarre. So I'm going to show a few more clips of this, and then we'll go ahead and go into the next video.
Call him.
Over here with the police.
How are you gonna call him?
How am I going to call him?
Yeah, if
I
he's
don't
dead.
know.
You fucking twat
I
out of
call
your
all
mind.
the time.
Look at your eyes.
You know what they
You're
do?
so fucking pinned out
That's
right
my
now.
family, dude.
You're a fucking weirdo, man.
No, he's a weirdo.
Yep.
Yes, that's right.
Psycho.
Don't.
And then once again, I don't agree with the way that this individual is communicating with her. You know, I feel it's best not to engage. But yeah, so I just want to put that out there because I've been accused of, tolerating this type of behavior.
Accuse my dad of this ever again.
What are you talking
Jim
about?
Hall.
Jim
He
Hall.
owns United.
I don't care who owns what.
Yeah.
I'm walking
You're
down
gonna
the
fucking
street,
die.
and you need to leave my fucking family alone.
That's my.
Okay, so she says that's her family. And then she said she named some guy named Jim, who owns United, right? And then she said, "I wish you would die." So it clearly it's really not coherent. It doesn't make sense, right? And once again, these people can own homes, they can drive vehicles, they can own weapons. It's just it's very, very bizarre.
Security, motherfucker. I'm just trying to help you.
I'm sorry, but I don't need your help.
Yes, you do, motherfucker.
And another trait is they're always irritated, right? And once again, it's so interesting how amongst each other, right? It seems like they can move around in society, but they can spot those of us who are different, and we're always subject to their type of abuse, which is also very interesting.
Dude, you do need my help, sir. Can't you see that, you son of a bitch?
Could you please just let me check out my groceries?
Fuck you. I'm trying to help you, motherfucker.
Wow, this is.
You got to ask Jesus Christ.
I
We're all
don't have
sinners.
to do anything.
We're all.
And that's another thing too. A lot of them will bring up Jesus Christ, right? And I think this is why a lot of people are kind of apprehensive when it comes to learning about Christianity, because we have characters such as this woman here who will bring up Jesus Christ, but we can tell that something definitely is wrong with her. So once again, could this be demonic possession, right? I don't know. Let's see here. Let me see if there's another example, and then we'll go ahead and play the next video. Okay, so I'm not going to show that one. I think let's see this one. I haven't seen this part.
I called the police.
Please, don't call the police. I don't want to go back in jail.
We don't call the police. He has a date.
Okay, so I'll stop it here, but there was also another example. There was a guy on a train. He was taking pictures up a woman's skirt. And so he gets caught by another lady, and they are pretty much try to they're having a conversation with him, and they're trying to get him to admit to what he did. And of course, he doesn't admit to it. He's very calm. Once again, he seems almost confused. And then eventually he did get kicked off the train. But yeah, so that was, I don't know, studying the behavior of these individuals is quite interesting. And it really is a deep rabbit hole to go down. So let's see here. Let me just go ahead and check out the chat, and then we'll play the next video. All right. So yes, definitely no engagement. Okay. So yes, They Live is a documentary, and I do believe so. I did watch the film about when did I watch it? I watched it maybe 2 weeks ago. And once again, I liken the alien characters to NPCs, right? And once again, it's like when I grew up with my narcissistic family, I would just sit and study them, and they were just quite strange. Like they were very, very, very strange, very robotic, very emotional or reactionary. That was a good one. They mimicked everything that the news told them. Like the news station was like their ultimate form of programming, right? So it was kind of like the news upgraded the information in their heads. And of course, they had a deep trust for allopathic medicine. So of course, they're pro inoculation, and they just don't break away from the script. And it was very interesting. So let me go ahead and show this next video. He does a great breakdown of the reality that we most likely live in. And for those of us who have awakened, right? I think that it's important for us to examine this and to explore these different theories. So let me go ahead and share that. All right. Okay. Here we go. And this video is going to be about 26 minutes. And I think I'm just going to leave it at its normal speed. Here we go.
Temporary figments of time. Let me explain. When you cast a movie, you must cast extras, filler characters, background people, essentially. This artificial consciousness is not here to hurt you or to trick you. It serves mainly two functions. The first function is to show us who we aren't by acting out and exhibiting inverted aspects of unity consciousness. The second function of the soulless beings, or backdrop people, has been to sustain the third-dimensional illusion externally, allowing us the one-way ticket towards internal work. We have been existing in a construct. This is not a metaphor or an exaggeration. Earth as we know it has been what I term a purgatorial dumping ground. Earth is essentially a giant net that is here to catch our dualistic purges. Thus, we are displayed every aspect of consciousness that is opposite of our true divine nature. This is the only reason why this realm seems so backwards. It's not because evil reigns or because we are being held captive. Quite the contrary. All around us are beings who seem like us, but they are not of us. Many are awakening. This is headed towards the grand exit portal. But most remain asleep, unconscious, performing the same destructive patterns, actions, and emotions without a true desire to transmute themselves. This is because most of what we term the masses are not even real. I know. You might say, but I see people everywhere. I can talk to them, ask them about their pasts. So isn't it judgmental to write off the majority of people as soulless? No, it is not. This construct is designed for the game players. Those who are awakening actually have eternal forms that are sleeping, dreaming up this state. And I have many videos on this topic if you have not seen them yet. Those who aren't, quote, waking up can't wake up because they're temporary consciousness a part of this overlay, akin to beings we project in our dreams, a mechanism of a sub and unconscious projection. Even though, yeah, in dreams you can talk to them, you can hang out with them, you might not even realize you're having a dream. There are a finite number of us, and the rest are simply empty shells acting as filler, just like any video game or movie. We inhabit similar looking avatars, but only a few contain true heart essence. We must have non-player characters, background people, to display to us everything that love is not, played out in culture, politics, in social dynamics, in art. The proclamations that people are so asleep, or why won't anybody realize what I'm realizing, are very important. The observation that you are expanding in a sea of consciousness that has no intention of expansion should tell you what is actually happening. You are a player in a temporary realm. Not only is the scenery, the cities, the landscapes temporary, but the people are also temporary. Without these filler characters around us, the game players would be the only ones in this construct, and the game couldn't be performed. If we are the main actors, the soulless beings are who we'd term the extras. Are extras important to movies? Yes, they are. They are more important than we think. A movie without extras wouldn't be believable. Likewise, this simulation of consciousness couldn't be sustained without non-player characters moving in the background and even interacting with us in our day-to-day lives. These extras act out scripts to project our shadows onto external events and personal dramas, even playing out in our lives to teach us that which remains hidden within ourselves. This is where we get the idea that friends, family, neighbors, coworkers involve us in specific scenarios in order to help release what we aren't releasing ourselves. In these cases, the extras take on the roles of being great mirrors and reflections. After all, extras in a movie are there to support the main characters. These scripts can be personal, but they can also act out in mainstream current events. Everything is here to guide us into an inwards process of divine reclamation. It might not seem that way when we're stuck in the third dimensional perspective in which we think everything is based in master-slave think or oppressor-victim scenarios. But I implore you to have an open mind about this, an open heart to this. We call these beings artificial intelligence because they are akin to programs. They are not living sentient lives like the living souls. They are algorithms manifested in human form. This answers the question, why are so many stuck in patterns, can only give what sounds like programmed responses, can't think or live outside of the predestined box? It's like no matter what information many are exposed to, they're simply attached to the mainstream narratives in their specific sphere of influence. It's because they are temporary consciousness. They are what we would call soulless or non-player characters. They are dualism manifested.
I think he's an NPC.
A what? English, please.
A non-player character. He's part of the game. So anything we ask him, he only has his programmed series of responses.
NPCs are merely aspects of the game with a programmed consciousness designed to help the players. We are in a virtual reality of consciousness, and the binary schematic we've been trying to resolve is reflected back to us in full, in culture, in the unawakened masses. We've talked about this in prior videos. Duality is a binary type of consciousness. Good and evil is akin to ones and zeros. So we are collectively dreaming up this state in order to get rid of duality. And in order to get rid of something, it must be reflected in the external, as within, so without. So duality has projected this construct, and therefore the majority of people are built in with the same consciousness and are built in within the construct. Like the living souls exist outside the NPCs, they're a part of this dream state. I'm not saying that NPCs are evil or bad. That's not the point of this video. They come in all shapes and sizes. But ultimately, the question is one going through a process of divine reclamation? And has one been going through this process? After all, that's what this experience is. That's what this construct is here for. It's here so we can resolve ourselves and go home. So if one has not been actively transforming through transmutation, then they are a non-player character.
What are they? Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system. That means that anyone we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent. Inside the Matrix, they are everyone, and they are no one.
This may be difficult to digest. To say most people are dead would mean many of your loved ones, friends, family, teachers, favorite musicians are not organic forces like you thought, but are a part of a complex AI consciousness. A soulless being appears as full of life as anyone, but we're dealing not with a complete person as we think of on all levels. We're dealing with something that suggests a constructed reflex machine, which can mimic a true being. An organic portal can seem to have creative ideas, moments they hold dear to their heart, but at the end of the day, their function is to consent to and sustain the energy extraction matrix. Their AI software dictates that their life will be focused on material, monetary, personal, and fleshly interest. The 20th century Russian esoteric author Boris Maraviv wrote in his work Gnosis that there are two types of humans, Adamic man and pre-Adamic man. This is how he classified the organic portals, or soulless beings, and the living souls. Maraviv writes, the scriptures contain more than one reference to the coexistence of these two humanities, which are now alike in form, but unlike in essence. The anthropoid race are the descendants of pre-Adamic humanity. The principal difference between contemporary pre-Adamic man and Adamic man, a difference which is not perceived by the senses, is that the former does not possess the developed higher centers that exist in the latter, which, although they have been cut off.
Okay, so let me pause it here for a second. Now, what's interesting is we can look at this point of view biblically, right? So when Adam and Eve were created, we could say, okay, they were the endemic man, right? But we know once they gave birth to Cain and Abel, after Cain killed his brother, he did not want to be ostracized because he felt that the quote unquote pre-Adamic man would kill him. So it does seem since the very beginning there have been two races of people here, right? So I do believe that the Bible also highlights this as well. Let me go ahead and continue.
From his waking consciousness since the fall, offer him a real possibility of esoteric evolution.
When we're in a dream at night, the environments and the people are all manifested through our unresolved inner that is playing out in a dream. That's what dream time is for at night. That which we haven't solved during the day, it ends up projecting outside of us. So sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's scary or disheartening. But when you wake up, the environments and even the characters in those dreams, they're nowhere to be found. So in a dream, your inner tension, turmoil, excitement, all of the polarity, the ones and zeros of your own consciousness, it manifests as people you can interact with. And unless we become lucid in the dream, we'll just accept that they are the same thing that we are. And there's really no separation. So you mentioned, this concept may feel as if I'm separating myself from others because I always see others as a part of myself. And this is indeed what soulless consciousness is. It's not just another force that's here. Because we are a collective, the game players are separated in this game because this is your purging process, this is my purging process. There's not a whole lot of us getting together in festivals and that kind of thing. It's because we require some filler, some non-player characters around us in order to help reflect to us parts of ourselves that we're releasing, or simply to give us experiences. This is not just a process of pain, it's also of pleasure. It's been both. And so the non-player characters of the Matrix have led us to where we are now, whether it's some people in our family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, our teachers. And ultimately, these are expressions of the heart trying to resolve ourselves. Because remember, if we don't resolve ourselves, then it must play out outside of us. And it's not only going to play outside as current events and conflicts with others, but the other is going to be a manifestation of something that's unresolved. So the dream at night is very much like the waking dream. However, this waking dream is bound by time within matter.
When one is in a dream, the characters appear real, but they are simply projected manifestations of an unresolved inner being, played out in order to process. We could say a dream's characters are background people on autopilot, and the lack of resolution of a certain aspect of one's mind is what is orchestrating them, unbeknownst to the dreamer while the dream is taking place. Veils are lifting, and we are seeing this situation for what it truly is, nothing more than a charade. We are the creation and the creator without a beginning or end. That's the paradox. But in order to have an experience of continuity, which is comprehensible, we must separate things and put them into environments which can be interacted with. After all, if you were everything all at once in your perspective, this experience couldn't take place. Going back to the analogy of a dream, you aren't in the perspective of yourself and the characters, even though ultimately the characters are attached to your mind. The principle of as within, so without is simple.
Everything unfolds from the inside out. All of our disharmony comes from not understanding this, that the output we experience is made of the same energetics as the input. What bubbles up within projects outwards always, even though it might appear with our five senses that the external is acting upon you and existed prior to that feeling or mode of thinking. So, every single time we have diverted from a unified state, experimenting with the fallacies of opposing emotions and perspectives that can never be resolved due to their polar nature-based intention, we have, in a sense, dumped that inverted expression of sovereignty into our environment.
And this is exactly why the world, especially in its current state, seems to be running on autopilot, like a bunch of ones and zeros, like algorithms that have no true divine essence. Culture, entertainment, politics, social dynamics, all of these things are revealing themselves more and more to be nothing but illusions, figments,
shadow projections.
This is why the Metatronic overlay has not only been a zone for energy extraction, But that energy extraction is the result of us using this dream time as a dumping ground for the manifestations we would like to cleanse ourselves of. In order to do this, however, we've had to live out this torment. Of course, if we remain attached to the farce of linear progression, we will ask, but if I'm not actively conscious of these creations, then how can I be manifesting them? It's not like I'm pulling the strings of every interaction I have from both sides. Once again, creation and creator are tied in an infinite feedback loop. Therefore, the experience is felt as the creation unfolds, all while the creation appears to have been independent before that experience. The living souls embark on various timelines as experiments, and this was the ultimate experiment used to process the possibilities of terror, destruction, chaos, and fear. But we're not terror or fear or any of that. Our trueness lies in the wellspring of warmth, of infinite capacity for expansion. So it's not possible to contract. Therefore, we've projected an environment which contracts. We lost ourselves in the contraction, identifying it as simply human nature. Organic portals are reversed sentience, demonstrating itself through its own algorithm, which creates the appearance of people who are real. And they're just like those in your dream. Outside this holographic overlay, there's nothing of them, because again, this is extreme polarity being played out like a timeline, running all possibilities and combinations through the supercomputer of consciousness. You might say, okay, as within, so without. The inner is the outer. So how come I have woken up, I am aware that these manifestations are nothing but shadows, yet they still continue to express themselves in the macrocosmic situation? It is because this dualistic consciousness operates like machinery. And again, we have used this realm, this overlay, as a dumping ground in order to release these aspects of ourselves which we do not want to carry into the new realm, the new area of existence which we will be inhabiting. This reality is appearing more and more automated, not because we're the victims of imprisonment of some artificial computer system, but because we are waking up to the true essence. And when we realize who we are, we can't help but realize the machinery that we've purged all around us. So everything is operating according to the linear old world paradigm. But there is a further and further separation between our microcosmic reality and awakenings and the macrocosmic situation, which seems to be more automated. The biwave distortion fields of the Vesica Piscis illustrate this. We have been quarantined in the middle of dualism, observing it play out in our reality, the eternal essence and the AI essence.
So we have two oversouls, the original oversoul, the true creative engine of the 0 point, and the secondary oversoul. But why would the secondary oversoul be akin to artificial intelligence? Well, if you invert our nature, what do you have? You have illusion. You cannot invert our nature. You cannot get rid of the 0 point. Of course, you can come up with a Metatronic overlay, try to imprison yourself unknowingly into a paradigm of seemingly pure evil. But because that idea of pure evil is only existent in this 3D Metatronic overlay, then the AI beings, the organic portals, are a part of the overlay. I could say the AI nature will be stripped away, but that's not the right explanation. They're not going to be stripped away because this experience has been the AI stripping itself out of the organic. This is like a cell splitting itself during mitosis, the same way we have split ourselves, allowing an AI consciousness to manifest. So what happens during mitosis? Well, the cell divides. I'll let you figure this out. The AI scripts here are very detailed. Why wouldn't they be? This is supposed to be a convincing prison sentence. So absolutely, when you walk up to people, when you interact with your coworkers, your friends, your family, there seems to be a sentience there. There seems to be complex pasts and preferences and personalities. And in a sense, they are real. I'm not saying you should discount anybody in your life. I'm not saying you should grow into hierarchical thinking due to this concept of soulless beings. But what I'm saying is, sooner or later, you will understand that there is a separation between what is true and what is inorganic. And the inorganic, while they may actually be helpful and benevolent and increase the capacity for you to become aware during this journey, ultimately, all of the soulless beings are attached to indoctrination at some level. So we have lots of gates in society, and the organic portals tend to stop at the gates. And there's many gates. There's even gates in the truther community. You will see absolutely organic portals in the truther community because the algorithms play out in all facets of life. It's not only the mainstream. Soulless beings come in all shapes and sizes. This isn't a one-dimensional hive mind. This is a hive mind, but how it presents itself is varied. Behind the facade, though, you will find the same binary code which disallows further expansion.
All right. Let me go ahead and pause this. Okay, there we are. Let me stop sharing, get rid of this video. All right, so that was, a pretty interesting perspective, right? So I'm not here to say that, yes, watch the replay. So I'm not new KG. I'm not here to say that I necessarily agree with everything that's being said in this video, but I do believe as we try to understand our current reality, the individuals in it, it's important to, look at a variety of sources and, pick what really resonates with us, right? So I just found it to be very, very, very interesting because I know during my spiritual awakening, I just had a lot of questions even when it comes to examining history, examining the scriptures. It seems as if the world is on this continuous loop, right? And this is where we get the saying that there's nothing new under the sun or history repeating itself. And if this dimension was some sort of script, some sort of matrix, could this be why, right? So it seems as if, once again, you can look at this even in the economy, right? With the rises and falls of the stock market, right? The rises and falls of nations, the wars and rumors of wars, right? So there's a war, then everything calms down, then there's another war, right? And I believe that the system is much more complex than what we think, right? So I was looking at the comments, and it's I guess someone made the assumption that we liken individuals who are not empathic to just being NPCs or narcissists, right? And I believe it's much more complex than that, right? So I don't really have a simplistic view of the world, but I've noticed that there is things that make me question it, right? And going back to the idea of narcissism, I do believe that there is some type of collective consciousness, some type of hive mind, and these entities are very aware of each other. Now, when we goes back to the Bible, we could say these individuals could be of the reprobate mind, right? The Bible also talks about if they don't have the love for the truth in their heart, that God will send them strong delusion. So could the NPCs or the narcissists, the cluster Bs, be likened to individuals who have been sent the strong delusion that the Bible speaks of, right? And so, let's see what else I have in my notes. Okay, let's see here. So once again, it just seems as if these type of characters, they're almost fillers. They always go with the mainstream narrative. They repeat the type of information that they're fed by these various mainstream platforms. They mimic their celebrities, right? They, let's break it down between male and female, right? So we have males, sports is huge, sex is huge, partying and drinking is huge, maybe light conversations about politics, right? And then you have females, right, where shopping is huge, makeup is huge, beauty is huge, right? Women emulating these characters that are called celebrities is huge. And we have this sense when it comes to examining these individuals, there's this type of binary way of thinking, right? So think you're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, that means you must be an anti-masker. If you're a Democrat, it must mean that you're pro inoculation, right? And once again, I feel that this is a very simplistic way of thinking. And for those of us who have awakened, who have gone through our spiritual awakening, we see that the system is deeply flawed and we don't necessarily fit in. So I never want to place myself in a box, right? So there can be some beliefs that I have that may align with the Republican Party and others that may align with the Democratic Party. But I don't believe, life is as simplistic as, looking at a narrator, somebody's points of view on YouTube and agreeing with it 100%, right? But I do believe that it's important just to kind of question our surroundings, right? And yes, there we go. Christy said a black or white thinking, right? So for those of us, who have awakened, we don't have that type of thinking, right? And once again, I believe this way of thinking is used to dismiss those of us who question authority, who question the collective, right? And this is a way that they can gaslight us and ostracize us. So we have Hugh in the house. How are you? Let's see here. All right, so let me see what else I have in my on my notes. Right, and so he likens these NPCs to real people who can mirror your own consciousness, people who kind of serve as a reflection. And for those of us who have gone through narcissistic abuse, our negative experience that we've had with the narcissist, is what led us to our spiritual awakening, right? And after going through this type of abuse over and over again, we had to sit ourselves down and say, hey, there is a pattern that's happening in my life, right? And what am I going to do about this pattern, right? So I could sit here and play victim and say, oh my God, I've been abused by these narcissists all my life. Oh my God, I've been abused by these NPCs all my life. but what is my part in it, right? And when we were able to introspect, right, and examine that this is a pattern in our lives, then this can lead us to our spiritual awakening and tapping into who we truly are as divine beings, right, as eternal beings. And maybe this reality is to force us to get to that point. And of course, I'm a Christian, right? So I'm putting the biblical narrative in. This reality is to get us to come to grips that we have a creator, that we need to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And this is why when we get down here, there's so much deception. It seems like the devil does everything in his power to get us from realizing that. And this is why we go through the abuse that we go through on the daily basis. This is why we are gang stalked. This is why we're targeted, why we've been scapegoated, why we've been shunned, right? We go through this abuse, right? To the abusers try to get us to tap into this reactionary type of emotional state so that we are what's the word, we're overwhelmed with these type of emotions, right? And therefore we don't have the time to consider who we truly are. And therefore we could possibly miss the opportunity to foster that relationship once again with our creator. So let's see here. But it was very interesting how, even when we look at the NPCs, the concept of narcissism, the sociopaths, the psychopaths, yes. So I do believe that the two are different, but I do believe that they prop up this matrix system. So where the cluster B, they operate off of evil, the NPCs, maybe some of them could be evil, but I do believe that they're fillers. They're fillers to keep this illusion that we live in alive, or to make it seem to appear more real, right? And once again, when we look at this planet, our life here as temporary, we know that things in the spiritual realm have to be much more real than what we're experiencing here. And a lot of people, they've fallen asleep in this state of consciousness, and they don't want to wake up to really understand that there's life outside of this world, right? And we get caught up in it, right? So even, so many people are thinking, okay, well, we want things to go back to normal, right? But if things go back to normal, what does that do with the possibility of seeking a creator outside of this universe, or a connection with the creator, a connection with God, a connection with Jesus, right? And let's see here. And once again, the narcissists, they have their cliche responses. You can go to them with a deep problem and they'll give you such a cliche response. And once again, are they programmed to behave that way, right? And once again, I mentioned earlier, it just seems like there's no depth to these characters. Let's see here, just looking at some of my notes. Hopefully all of you are doing well in this in the chat. I know this is kind of different, but of course, I'm always questioning society, right? I'm always questioning this reality, because there's a reason why we've been ostracized. There's a reason why we feel that we don't fit in. And and I do believe this matrix system, these NPCs, these narcissists, the cluster Bs, they impose so much damage on us so that we don't awaken, right? And we need to, right? We need to. And once again, it's very important even for our healing process. All right. Okay. And what was interesting too, the creator said something such as the soulless beings, are prone to indoctrination, right? And so once again, every time there's some type of stage global event, it just seems like the hive, these people that support the matrix, they're always in support of it. And even, they have different categories of the truth tellers, right? But they're still a part of the system, right? So like even what's going on now, we can say that, in my opinion, people such as, Dr. Malone, or Dr. McCullough are likened to the truth tellers within the NPC realm, right? So once again, they keep the system propped up, right? So when I look at the concept of viruses, right, I do believe that this is something that is deeply flawed and based off of lies, right? I don't believe that it is what it is. However, we have people who have worked in those industries who, no matter what information you give them to prove that these things may not be what we've always perceived them to be, they will never side with it. They will always support, in my opinion, what is the lie. So let me go ahead and check out some of these comments. All right, we have Travi in the comments. I don't know if I've seen you before, but welcome. Right, and I just believe that it's very important to just really examine our reality, right? So a lot of people who follow the channel, we talk about the concept of gang stalking. Why is there some type of unison between the gang stalkers, right? Why is it so mainstream, right? Why we could even connect technology into it, right? And even my treatment here on YouTube, right? So I compare my being a scapegoat in a narcissistic family to how I'm treated here on this platform, right? A lot of the stuff is shadow banned. Every time I post something, I lose followers. I've had a warning and a strike already. And once again, it's quite similar, but once again, does it feed into this system this matrix system that we're all a part of? We have Leilani in the house. How are you? All right. Okay. Just looking at some of these comments. Let me play some music while I read some of these comments. And I have one more video for you all, just to kind of break down the characteristics of an NPC. Or somebody that's different, I guess we can say, right? Because I don't want the viewers, anyone listening, to dismiss everyone or to subjugate everyone as being an NPC or a narcissist or this. Once again, I don't want the viewer to have such a simplistic mindset when it comes to viewing reality, right? Or someone who you may not agree with, right? But I just want to go down these various rabbit holes, just to ask the question. I'm always asking questions. So let me turn on some music while I look at some of these comments. All right. Awake in the spiritual realm, right? And I do believe that while we're here, because we're here for a temporary amount of time, it's important to force ourselves to ask these questions so that we do have our spiritual awakening, right? It's very important that we go through this awakening process. All right. Wendy's in the house. How are you, Wendy? All right. And for those of you who are new, yes, so we are going to have an after show. So this is where we can have a conversation about some opinions or questions that you have. But yes, I do engage. So for those of you who have been following the channel, you know that I am one to engage with the chat. I would never want to dismiss you all. Okay, so Luann says it definitely feels like some sort of network. And, honestly, I believe it. It just, I didn't feel this way in the past. And, after I went through my spiritual awakening, I don't know. It just feels that way. It really does. And once again, like I brought up earlier with the concept of Joe Biden, how are individuals such as this guy able to rise the ranks, right? Where they clearly lack what it is to be a leader. However, they are our leaders, and it's not just America. You can look all around the world. These are the people that rise. And for those of us who do have leadership qualities, for those of us who care about mankind, who are empathic. Society does everything that they can to keep us at the bottom. They don't want us to have anything, right? They don't. It makes them so angry. And everything that we try to create, they destroy. Everything that can benefit humanity, such as, remedy when it comes to healthcare, society will try to destroy it, right? They don't want true solutions because it goes against this matrix system, right? So I liken this world to a prison system. There is beauty here, but the controllers, the temporary people who are in control of this system, they want to do everything to traumatize us, right? And maybe this is why there is such a rise in narcissism, or this concept of NPCs, because the world is heavily traumatized. The longer you deal with trauma, the more brain damage one will have, right? So maybe this is why. Okay, let me see here. It says, yeah, many narcissistic abusers are very stubbornly brainwashed to this system. Yes. And once again, they mimic everything they see in pop culture, they hear on the media. And so you'll have things like this is nothing more than the flu rebranded. This has a 99.9 survival rate. Or you have some on the other side, this is safe and effective, or you're a Trump supporter. Like, it's crazy. They just mimic what they hear. All right, so let me go ahead and see here. And we've got one more video. Let me block this person really quick. We always have, AI on here promoting whatever spams they have. Okay, so let me see the Russian spam bots. Okay, will you post this on YouTube and catch the video? Yeah, so I'll leave it on here. Hopefully YouTube doesn't, attack me for having, question the realities. All right. Okay, so now let me go ahead and share another video, and this is going to be a breakdown, right? So of, characteristics of the NPC. So let me just turn this music off so I can focus. I like it, but I can't think with it on. All right, so going back to the concept of NPCs or soulless beings or organic portals. These individuals, even though they appear like us, even though they have the same avatar, so the flesh, even though the flesh looks very similar to us, they are quite different. And so a lot of these people lack eternal dialogue, right? So I know for myself, I can hear myself in my head without speaking, right? I can question things, or when I'm reading a book, I don't have to read it out loud in order to interpret the book. But not everyone in this reality is this way, right? And so these type of individuals lack internal dialogue. So what I'm going to do is share a clip of somebody sharing the way that they process information. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right. And here we go.
Brave by clicking on the link down below.
And we're back.
Probably most requested question was, how do you read? Like, when I read, I hear the words in my head. I don't know how you could possibly read without not hearing the words.
When I read, I can see the sentence structure. Like in my head, every sentence has a shape, so you can see like the shape of the sentence. And then also like.
Okay, so let me pause it here. Okay, so I remember when I came to this phenomenon, right? It was through another content creator. Check out her channel. It's called a Deeper PTE. I was mind blown. Like this made my stomach turn. However, so this video went viral a few years back. And so what this young lady is explaining is how she does not have internal dialogue, right? So she's going to break down exactly what she experiences. So for instance, when I read a book and the book is discussing, something in relations to imagery, I visualize it as I'm reading. However, what this young lady is saying is she doesn't visualize it that way. She visualizes it. She visualizes sentences as structure. And let me let her go ahead and explain it.
Keywords will pop out and I can file those away into my like concept map. So at the end of reading something, I can have a concept map of the main topics that I read about. And I tend to move my lips when I read. So like essentially I'm saying it out loud, but it's just not like audible.
So do you visualize the setting when you're reading a book?
No, it's not like images.
So as you can see, the interview is already confused, and I can understand why. When I first saw this video, I was completely and utterly, spellbound, as it were, because I can't imagine not seeing words and not thinking in words and not hearing words and not having a monologue. I can see images, I can visualize, it's just not as powerful as the words going on in my head. So this person says she sees the shape of the sentence. What exactly does that mean? What exactly is the shape of a sentence? What exactly does she see in her head? And as we go on here, keep these questions in mind, because I actually have, like I said, some possible explanations I may be able to address and crack the code to the NPC question.
Like audible.
So do you visualize the setting when you're reading a book?
No, it's not like images. It's just the words.
So do you like reading like fiction books, like where you have to put yourself in a situation?
I never really enjoyed reading.
At
and
all?
I think maybe that's why. Like I can see the story plot.
Are you a fast reader?
Yes, very fast reader.
Okay, we could have a 100-question test. She's done when I'm on question 12. I'm not even kidding. It is.
Okay, so it seems like she's more logical and less creative. But what was interesting about this is, I went to school with people who seemed to be like this young lady, and the way that they would process information on a test, like they knew how to do very well on a test. When it came to even I would say math tests as well. But when it came to their engagement with people, it was very subpar, right? And when you have people who have this type of ability, right, who can process information differently, they can really move through academia with such high scores and get accepted into different programs such as medical programs and become doctors. And however, I feel, and this is an assumption that I'm making, I feel that they lack critical thought that goes against the matrix system, right? So they'll have critical thought that only supports the matrix system, but not critical thought that goes against the mainstream narrative. And I believe this is why we see so many flaws in this current pandemic, right? So we have a lot of healthcare professionals that continually do the same thing, even though it's not working, right? So when it comes to this pandemic, there's things which I can't really discuss on this channel, but it seems as if the process of healing the patient, it's not working, and you have professionals who have worked very hard to become doctors, right? However, they're unable to look at alternative points of views, right? And could this be the reason why? Let's go ahead and continue.
Superhuman. It's not fair. How do you know what you're thinking if there's no words?
Because I can see it.
So she said something very telling there, and this is what I'm going to elaborate on. She can see it. She can see the sentence. She can see the words. She doesn't hear the words. She doesn't hear the words like you hear my voice. She sees a picture in front of her of what is being said.
Okay, let's see here. I want to go back to the interview if there's any more left, instead of his interpretation of it. I think we might be done with this. Okay, here we go.
Forward if I wanted. Like it's all just like it's like files. There's categories of information in my head, and I can pull them to the front if I need them.
Doesn't this kind of sound robotic like? It's very similar to like having your different files on a computer, right? And when you need the information, you click the file, and right could, oh my God, this is so deep. Because when I look at technology, when I look at the computer, right, I feel that it is Satan's counterfeit to how humans are designed, right? So like, for example, you can liken the computer to like the brain, right? Where all the information is stored. And then you can liken, cables that connects the system to like our nervous system, or like our energetic fields to things such as the internet, right? I don't know. I just feel like or like the camera to like the human's eye, right? But it's just very interesting, right? Going down this rabbit hole of examining the NPC, and seeing how robotic they are, right? And I don't know. I'm trying to tie in the transhumanism connection, um, but I think let's finish this first.
But just like if I'm sitting and like I have a thought, or someone is like walking by and I have a thought about that person, I'm like talking to myself about that. Does that not happen to you?
No. If I have a thought, normally I say it out loud.
So as we go further into
All right, so I think we'll stop it there. And so she's one of many. So I want to say about a year or two ago, I went down this rabbit hole about people lacking internal dialogue, and there's actually quite a few, right? And so pretty much, if they have a thought, they just say it out loud. And once again, the way that they process information is quite different. They don't like the creative side, right? So a lot of them don't like reading for pleasure. They just read to gather information. But yeah, it's very, very, very interesting, right? Let's see what the comments are saying. All right. And shout out to all of you in the house. If you all can please like and share this video, it will mean a lot to me, right? So let me go ahead and check this out, right? And honestly, I don't know if I want to call them androids, but something is different, right? And so once again, this is going to kind of what's the word that I'm thinking of? I'm like, let me go into my files and see. But this is going to support this NPC narrative, or this type of matrix AI type of system, right? So in the last video talked about those of us having an internal where is it? I'm looking, an internal essence, whereas others have this AI essence, right? So I don't know, like it is just interesting. Is there anybody in the chat who thinks this way, right? Or who processes information this way? It'll be nice to like kind of get your perspective, right? And by no means, if you are, I'm not really trying to demean you, but it'll be interesting, right? Because this is something that, in my personal life, I can't completely relate to. But yeah, it was very, very, very interesting. Okay, so let me look at some of these images. It says my file and my brains are like a Rolodex of images. Interesting. Mine is, they're more like little movies, like small movies, right? Where I can just experience an event, go back, to a particular event, let's just say in childhood, and visualize it. Okay, so let's see. I actually wish I could go back before I knew all this stuff and just really enjoy video games and watch TV as a teenager instead of having too much burden. I mean, I guess you could. I guess you could turn it off, but I feel like I feel like video games and television, or television shows, are imitating something, right? And could they be imitating this reality? Even the structure of how they're built, right? And once again, for those of us who are player characters, right? It seems like a lot of us are separated, and we have to go through this awakening individually, right? And we're kind of the main character in the game, trying to find our way. It's like the Bible relates it to, or likens it to being in the wilderness, right? And it truly does feel that way. It feels that we're the minority, and we're in the wilderness, and we have to find our way back to God before we leave this reality, right? So we have a short time here to make that connection with God, or to dismiss it, right? Due to the deception. And is this the great deception that the Bible speaks of? So I don't know, but I do believe that there is an awakening process going on. And so we see different phenomenon, such as the one that we're examining now. And I believe it's because everything in the dark is going to be revealed before the Son of Man returns. And so this is why we have these different theories, whereas in decades past, no one would ever even talk about things like this, right? Or it was too fringe, it was too out there. Yes, all technology. Yeah, replicas of the human body, right? There was another one. I'm trying to think. But yeah, I can't think of another example. But everything in technology, it is some type of replica of the human body, right? So some type of inversion, right, or knockoff. Yes, and so it says in the medical field, most all would in the medical field, most all would follow the rules, so they didn't have to critically think. Conclusion: they are unable to critically think, and but the paradox in that is, in order to get into the medical field, you need to have the ability to critically think to get through your coursework. But I do believe, as I stated earlier, they are able to critically think if it supports this matrix system, right? So, you know, when I studied science, shit, which when I studied science, especially microbiology, there was a lot of things that just did not make sense, And when you study science, everything is based around theory, right? And um, these individuals could perform quite well in these classes, right? However, let's go to religion, right? Some of them really don't understand it. Even things such as the Bible, they don't understand how individuals could have a connection with what they feel is an artificial character or a fairy tale character, such as Jesus Christ, right? However, when it comes to examining subjects that support the deception, they thrive in it and they do quite well, right? So I find that to be very interesting as well, because a lot of science I feel is deception, right? To pull people away from the creator. However, when I examine science, I do believe that it supports that God does exist. Like that's what I feel. So let me see here. All right. Just looking. Hopefully, you all can't hear the mower in the background. We have Joseph in the house. Shout out to you, Joseph. Hopefully, all is well. Okay, so it blows me away that people don't have internal dialogue. Yes, and so when I've had this, I wish I could go back to my narcissistic family and ask them if they have internal dialogue. They probably do though. But yeah, it blew me away. Like I couldn't sleep that night. I'm like, whoa, this is too deep. I can't. And I would just listen to more and more people, share their experience. And I'm like, you really don't have internal dialogue. Right. So very, 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 very interesting. Okay. So I guess now what we'll do is we'll go into the after show. And this is a time where if you have any questions in relations to the materials that we covered, or in relations to what we cover on the channel, we can go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and play some music as I look through the chats. And shout out to all of you here. Shout out to all of you here. All right, lo-fi. And another thing too is I feel that when we speak the truth, it makes them uncomfortable, right? And even when you examine them on these internet streets, it really does feel like they operate as a collective. It really, really, really does feel that way. All right, so I'm just scrolling through some of the comments, sending you love and positive vibes. So, what are you cooking us, Wes? Even though I'm fasting today, but hopefully all is well with you. Yes, I agree. My mind is like a lot of movies as well. And so, what's interesting too when it comes to things that resonate with you. I believe this is why The Matrix always resonated with me. I believe that's why I could never let go of that film, like ever. And I do believe that this is why. So I assume that everyone saw Images, yes, in their head. I did too. All right. Yes, memories of the past events are like movies. Very interesting. Yes. And I think a lot of us who are creatives do have an overly imaginary way of thinking as well. And I know when I was going through abuse growing up, I would allow my mind to drift and, kind of, daydream and be caught in this, in the imagery. that was, that I had in my mind, and it was a way that I could escape. Yes, photographic memory. But I'm like, I wonder if these are why these individuals do better in school, right? And once again, there was one who brought up the concept of writing, and the way that they wrote was very, what's the way that I can explain it? Um, it was more structured based, right? It was, and the way that they would get context clues is they would use a word, they would use a few words in a sentence to kind of understand what was being said, but they couldn't visualize it, um, in that context. So I thought that was very interesting as well. Oh, that's interesting. So, weird too. I remember how my dad talked about dreaming in black or white. I definitely dreamed in color. Same here. Same here. Yeah, that's interesting. You dream in Technicolor. All right. Let's see here. And film, I guess, could be likened to memories, right? Okay. Okay. I want to say the Gnostics also talk about the concept of NPCs, right? Um, that's interesting. Okay, okay. Just looking, scrolling. It says, okay, this is interesting. So it says, I think internal dialogue is packaged. Let me turn this off for example. Okay, so I think uh, internal dialogue is packaged deal with empathy and remorse, conscious and creativity. Sad and scared to think what these people really are without these things. Yeah, and once again, I just um I goodness, this reality is just so interesting. Like it's just honestly, it's like we're just really just trying to put the pieces together and really try to understand it. And I do believe that reality is shifting as well. Like I wonder if the concept of gang stalking existed 100 years ago, or were we just deceived by it? Yeah. So it says we're in a biblical matrix. That's what I feel. I feel like we're in a biblical wilderness, and we have to find our way before we die. A very bizarre matrix. Yes, it truly is bizarre. And like thinking about this 5 years ago, I would have thought I was nuts, right? But I don't know. My spiritual awakening has definitely brought me to a different understanding of the world that we live in. Okay, so question: is an NPC and a narcissist the same? Seems the flying monkeys and enablers would be called NPCs. I don't. Ooh, I don't know. I believe they both support this matrix system, right? So they always go with the mainstream narrative. They're definitely subject to indoctrination. They definitely are conformists. I would say maybe they are different, right? Because I wouldn't say that all NPCs are narcissists, and right, we know that narcissists they're evil, right? But I do believe that they support one another, so I would put them in the same group. um so if I had to break it down, I would say you have the NPCs and then you have the PCs, right, or the player characters. But I don't believe that all player characters are awake, and I do believe that some of them unfortunately die before awakening. I really do believe that. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Well, they said they think out loud, right? Or they talk when they think, right? So I think they remember their past in that way. Very, 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 very interesting. Hopefully, you all can't hear my stomach. Okay, so do you think it's possible that to develop narcissistic characteristics after being abused for too many years? Yes, I definitely believe, and all of us have narcissistic character traits. Now, the narcissist is just going to embody, I want to say, about 10 of those character traits. Um, but yes, so I do believe that abuse is tied in, right? Going through abuse can really alter a person's personality. And yes, so yes. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see what we got here. All right. Okay, so let me turn on this music once again as I read some of these comments. And shout out to all of you listening right now. Yes, same here. And I would also read books to escape, but I would have to hide them because the narcissists in my family definitely did not like to see me read books, even though they would make fun of me for not reading books as well. It's kind of weird. Okay, let's see here. School taught you to be a daydreamer. Yes, I would. There would be some classes, if I was next to a window, I would just look out the window and just take my mind away from what we were supposed to be learning in school. And I just, honestly, that's another thing too, that I brought up in past videos is going through this type of abuse and being in a constant state of fight or flight. It really does affect the brain and how the brain interprets information. And so a lot of us have a hard time focusing because our body is just exhausted, right? And it sometimes it's hard for us to pick up information as easily as others who grew up in healthy homes, just because our body being in fight or flight. And I know that during my healing process, it was as if a light bulb had gone off in my brain, and it was able to function at full capacity or at a better capacity than it was when I was holding on to the abuse or when I was around the narcissist. And a lot of victims of abuse will report a high level of brain fog or it's like self-doubt when they're around these individuals. And so this is why it's important to go no contact. Okay. All right. So just checking out this. Yeah. So I know a lot of people who talk about gang stalking are into narcissism as well. And even the concept of reincarnation is something that's interesting to me as well. Right. So do NPCs go through this process of reincarnation, or, is that, not true at all? Let's see here. We have Z in the house. How are you? Hopefully all is well. Let's see here. Candy is in the house. All right, you all. I think I'm almost done reading the chat. It says narcissistic abuse and cults rewire the brain. Yes, they do. And I think this is why a lot of us have, a problem with being very fearful, right? So I know, with everything that we're seeing in the world today, it can make those of us who are victims of this type of abuse scared. And this is what the cult does. This is what the narcissistic cult does. It breaks us down so much where we don't even trust ourselves. And the news re-traumatizes us. And, it behaves, like a cult. Cults will traumatize you. And they'll pretty much, if they don't traumatize you directly, they'll traumatize you indirectly by abusing someone else. And so you see their outcomes. And so that kind of puts you in line, so to speak. But yes, so narcissistic families operate like cults. They're one and the same, right? And once again, it's like this world operates as a cult, right? So if the cult leader tells you to get inoculated, if you don't, you'll be ostracized, right? So narcissism is ingrained in the fabrics of society. And this is why we see all the problems that we see in the world, right? And then this is also why, a lot of us are so confused by why the majority just don't seem to wake up. No matter how much truth you shove in their face, they don't wake up. I look back at school like a prison sentence I finished. Oh man. Well, for me, what was interesting about that is because I liken my household to being in slavery or prison. School was kind of an outlet where I could kind of be myself, to an extent. Um, but yeah, a lot of people did not have a good relationship with school. Let's see here. It says, I grew up very isolated and not books or toys. I am a miracle. Yeah. Interesting, right? But you got through it. Let's see. And hopefully you all can't hear my stomach. It's embarrassing. Okay, let's see here. Read the War Scrolls or the Dead Sea Scrolls. I feel like I have that book. I need to check it out. But I think it's somebody else's interpretation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, so that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Okay, so it says narcissists dominate our media and government at the moment. That's why everything is seems off. But I think it's been off for um since the beginning of time, right? I really do. But I do believe the reason why the media has, risen to the top is because what they're trying to do is prevent this mass awakening, right? And this is what the book of Revelation speaks of, right? So the apocalypse, right? Eventually, society will wake up, and I think this is why the media is so, why it seems like it's plugged in every aspect of our lives, is to keep us in this dreamlike state, right? To keep us from awakening, to keep us from even realizing that spiritual warfare takes place each and every day, right? And it also serves as a way to brainwash, right? Um, to keep the lies alive, right? And you see how it transforms society, right? So a lot of people are scared to even leave their homes because they're afraid of being infected with this bug, that's supposedly floating through the air. And where did they get this knowledge from? The media, right? Um, the media also teaches us to hate one another, or to get us to focus on things such as racial issues, right? And this is going to divide the population. And this is exactly what the narcissistic parent does, right? They pit the kids against each other, and then they'll turn around, and when something else worse is going on, then they will turn around and scapegoat a different group of people, right? And so, for many years here in American society, the black race has been the scapegoats of society. And now they're trying to flip that and make the white race the scapegoats of society. And this is where we get movements such as Black Lives Matter, right? So now Black Lives Matter, as and at the same time that the system is collapsing, right? And once again, it's because there's a bigger issue going on. Our society is transforming around us. And so, what the narcissists will do is, instead of fixing the greater problem, they'll focus on a smaller problem, which they also created, and come up with what is perceived to be a solution to that problem, but it's not, right? So, going around just saying Black Lives Matter doesn't solve anything, right? So I thought that to be quite interesting as well. People say that Trump is a narcissist and a cult leader. I'm like, yeah. So I'll start doing some more videos explaining or breaking down the malignant narcissist, right? So Trump has a lot of narcissistic character traits, and this is why I believe he's been promoted to the position that he's in. And once again, because he's a part of this hive mind, I guess you can say, a lot of people believe that he is going to fix things. And what's unfortunate is a lot of people in the faith really think that he's a brother in Christ. But he is not, my friends. He is not. And once again, isn't it funny how the world always wants a man to be the savior, but never wants to accept, the biblical savior, right? So I thought that to be very interesting as well. But yes, I do believe that Trump is a narcissist. Right. Let's see. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Very deceptive. I don't understand how people are deceived by him, but yeah, he is. And I think just people just hope for something, better to for things in America to change. Because I mean, honestly, with our current president, um, it's it's a mess. It's a mess. And I would say that he's more likable than our current president as well. All right. Let's see here. That this is true, right? In American, our school system was teach that white people are the minority. And then we have this concept of white privilege. So obviously, according to, that theory, if you're white, you're obviously privileged, which is just not true. Right. And once again, this is what happens when you have this like binary way of thinking or this black or white way of thinking. You break down the world as being too simplistic. It's much more uh, advanced and complex than what they teach in school, which I feel like is an aversion anyway, right? And hence, white people are the minority in the world. Like if you look at the world as such, if you take yourself out of American society and you look at the rest of the world, there's more people of color in the world than there are European descent people, right? So it's very interesting. They'll move into climate change soon. Yeah. Yeah, they always have something. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. One second. Let me put on my glasses. My blue blocking glasses so I don't fry my eyes. Okay, so let's see what Susan is saying. In a dream recently, I confronted something like a demon. I woke up and wrote down what I said with difficulty. I have the right to not know you exist. Thing was very surprised and angered and flustered. That's interesting that you say that. I know when I had my spiritual awakening, I had a lot of demonic attacks. And that's another aspect, right? So we on this channel, today we were discussing the physical aspects of the world, but we didn't even link in the demonic side. That's another layer, right? But yeah, it's very interesting how these things will attack you via your dreams, right? Um, and what's also interesting too is sometimes your dream also serves as like this unconscious way of processing things. Because I know once I woke up to the idea of narcissism and I was healing through my abuse, a lot of it was done via dreams, right? I was confronting my abusers one by one via dreams, and before it got to the point of me confronting them, I was running away from them, right? And then it got to a point where I felt like I couldn't run away from them. I was like losing my breath, right? Trying to get away from them. So I went from being fearful to these people to trying to stand up for myself and no words coming out to standing up for myself and then them running away from me. And all this happened in my dream state, right? So, yeah. And then, once again, it's like the spiritual side of these things is also another component to examine. So, very, very strange. This reality is very, 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 very strange. Okay. Yes, I mean, Trump told you he was a snake. He told you he was a snake. Okay, let's see here. And then the serpent seed theory is also very interesting as well. If people are for Black Lives Matter, then at least, okay, so then it at least tells us that there are empathic people in the world, even if they cannot comprehend the bigger picture. So I respectfully disagree with this. I believe because the majority is saying that Black Lives Matter, then people they virtue signal. It's not the fact that they care about Black people. It's just the fact that this is something that the media props up and it makes the individual a part of the collective and it makes them look as if they are an empathetic person, right? But if you believe that Black Lives Matter, that means that you also should believe that the lives of children matter, or the lives of women matter, and you shouldn't need the mainstream media to prop up this narrative in order for you to support Black people. And what's interesting about George Floyd is everybody was up in arms about him, but there are other Black people who have died, during the same time, which no one cared about. So I believe people like to virtue signal and create the sense or the illusion that they are empaths and they have empathy. But really, everyone was just frustrated because everyone was locked down, right? And so this was a way that they could release their rage by acting as if they stood for something when they really didn't. So once again, there was a bigger problem at play, and everybody, the hive, chose to focus on a smaller problem and create a false solution for the smaller problem. So walking around with signs painting Black Lives Matter on the ground and protesting really wasn't a solution to the problem, right? And you know, American society, it's it, it was I can't what's the word? um, when you look at American society, right, and just the history of, or at least what they tell us in history in relations to Black people, um, it just kind of seemed, it was unbelievable for me. Um, Now, do I believe everybody is racist? No, but this country has tolerated racism for so long because racism is a byproduct of narcissism, and narcissism is a byproduct of evil. And if the country is ran by narcissists, if our systems are, based off of the concept of narcissism, then racism is deeply going to be ingrained in it. So yeah, I don't really buy the fact that people who were for, now I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of people who were supporting the concept of Black Lives Matter, I don't believe they were empathic. I just think everybody was frustrated because they were all locked down and didn't want to acknowledge the bigger problem. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, because honestly, people just care about themselves, right? So, with the rise of narcissism in society and global society, people really only care about themselves. And um, but they don't want people to believe. They want people to believe that they care about the community, right? So they'll say, get inoculated, do your part, right, as a citizen. But really it's they're worried about getting sick and dying, and they want you to be inoculated. They want you to walk around with your mask on so that nothing happens to them. They just don't want to admit it out loud. Okay. Okay, let's see what he is saying. Okay, so you all, we've been on here for almost 2 hours. I'll stay on here for a little bit. Then we'll go ahead and get off. What I'm going to do is scroll to the bottom and work my way up. And just to let you all know, we do have a Discord channel. And so there we have conversations with each other. There's a voice section, so we can communicate with each other there. So check out the Discord if you want to communicate with me in a small group setting. Okay, so yeah, so let's see here. It says people pretend they care about you getting sick from COVID, but they don't care about homeless people. Yeah, so all of a sudden the world cares about the health of people, but does the world create the environment for people to be healthy? And this means the environment for people to thrive, right? No, we can't even get clean water, but all of a sudden we care about people's health. That it's not the case. People die every day and people don't care, right? But now all of a sudden, because of this crisis going on right now all of a sudden people care, right? And the state of delusion going on in the world is extreme, right? We've been in this crisis for what, 3 years now. So what are we just going to wear a mask and inoculate our way up for the next 10 years, right? And the reason why this keeps going is because people, they're scared to die because they're not connected to the creator. And so and they're comfortable with everyone conforming, right? And so when you don't conform, it makes them uncomfortable because they fail to look, at why they are conforming. They don't want to look internally, right? And so yes, I could tell I pissed off a few people because I got a few people that just left right now. All right, so let's see here. Okay. Mountains collapsing. That is terrifying. Right. And there's various theories on him. Right. But I usually I say that the hive, right, they always support the mainstream narrative. So when they're angry and when they're in support of something, then you know that this was something created by the establishment. Right. So don't be deceived by it. Okay, so I think they pull us into their dreams sometimes. That happens to me too. That's weird. That is weird. I don't want to be a part of anybody's dreams. But the dream state is very interesting. Could it be another reality? Okay, so when is the next form? I'll probably get on there a little bit tonight. Um, yeah, I'll probably hop on tonight. I'll send a message on YouTube because I'm limited on what I could say here. But yeah, probably tonight because I feel pretty good, and I have to distract myself so that I don't eat. Oh man, let's see here. But it was really nice engaging with you all on our last Discord session. That it was nice to finally communicate with you all instead of via chat or like one-way communication. Okay, so it says narcs pretend to be good people, but my narc neighbors don't even help the elderly shovel snow, but preach, get the jab. Yeah, yeah. And once again, this is why, for those of you who aren't really in touch with the concept of narcissism, this is why it's important to examine it, right? Because once you examine narcissism, you'll understand the world that we live in. You'll understand that, a lot of people are just full of shit. They are. A lot of people, they live their life playing these characters, right? They go out into society, they put on their mask, they act like they care, right? So going back to just using my experience as an example, right? My adopted family will be out there saying Black Lives Matter, but they had a half black child that they adopted that they treated like shit behind closed doors where no one could see them. So once again, they don't care, but they want to create the illusion that they do care and that they actually do stand for something, but they really don't. They don't. And what they do is they create these situations. They create these problems. They want people to be miserable. They don't want there to be any type of solutions. And this is why the majority of the world is satisfied walking around with masks on and keeping this pandemic alive and submitting to it. Right. This is why 3 years, and people talk about this awakening, of the hive. And if that were the case, it's like, well, it's been 3 years. Right? So people protest against these mandates, but then they'll still have these masks on. So it's like by keeping the mask on, you're keeping the lie alive, right? So what are you really standing for? And once again, the collective is doing this. Okay, so with the numbers they have put out there should have been outlaw cars because they kill people. Wait, let me see. Let me see. I might have to read that again. Okay. So, can any of you tell me why some targeted individuals act narcissistic? Once again, it's the false image, right? So, there's a lot of people who claim to be a part of the targeted community as a way for people to feel sorry for them, as a way to be a part of something, right? There are people who claim to be TIs that are narcissists, right? So that means they're liars, they're deceivers, right? They're manipulators. And yes. And so once again, I feel that gang stalking and narcissism work, they're like one and the same. They work very well together. And if you don't add the spiritual component in it, then a lot of TIs will be deceived, right? But there is a spiritual component for sure. Okay, I'm not seeing some of these comments. Yeah, it's probably YouTube. Okay, so oh yeah. So yes. So you don't know who's in Discord. I mean, I do. But yeah, it's so funny. Very, very, very interesting. I like Discord. All right. Because I feel like I could be myself there. Right. On YouTube, I can't say anything. I can't share anything. It's crazy. Yes, you know them by their fruit. Trust me. Trump supporters. All right. But yeah, I feel like everyone on the channel is pretty good. I haven't, gotten comments like that, such as, "Oh, you must be a Trump supporter," or "You're a Biden supporter." I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't like either. Okay. Yes. So, and I'm guilty of this too. It says I use a mask in the supermarket, but gas stations, grill stores, I don't wear a mask. I don't care. Some of the people, yeah. So I was just using that as an example, right? Of how the hive operates. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be something else that the media pushes that everybody's going to be all up in arms about. It's like the media constantly wants you to be reactive, and I think these social media platforms teaches us to be reactive, right? You can go on Reddit and you can look at all these various threads where I feel like AI is intentionally putting things in there to make people mad so that they stay on these platforms longer, right? So this is where you get into the topic of the dead internet theory, which got me in trouble here on these YT streets because I think it was too close to the truth. But yeah, it was very interesting. All right, you guys. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and call it a day or evening. It was a pleasure having all of you on here, and I'll probably hop on Discord a little later, maybe around our scheduled time of like 6:45. I'll let you all know. And depending on who pops up, I do believe there's a question here. I do believe I forget what I was going to say, you guys. Let me see here. So it says, do you believe that all narcissists, I think that's why I got confused, but do you believe that all narcissists are conscious of what they're doing, are some that don't understand the magnitude and consequences of their nature? I think it's a little bit of both, but the narcissists definitely know what they're doing. When they're targeting you, when they're harming you, when they're inflicting pain on you, they know. They know. And I think a lot of people of narcissistic abuse, we'll gaslight ourselves and say, oh no, it's just their nature, it's because they're holding on to all this childhood trauma. No, they know what they're doing, and this is why they rewound us over and over again. So yes. Now, do I feel like they can control their nature? No, I think that's just who they are. It's in their DNA. And yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. I know I'm just not trying to be too slow on here. So let's see here, but let me go ahead and read that. Yeah, I'll get fun times in Discord. Yeah, I like Discord. I like communicating with you guys like verbally. Okay. So there's not like a pause, like this awkward silence. Okay, so I have never really had any security in this world. Yeah, me either. Tell me about it. Anything outside of the four walls that I stay in, that's it. Okay. All right, you guys. So let me go ahead and play some music and we'll go ahead and get out of here. And once again, it was a pleasure to have all of you on today. If possible, if you could do me a favor and like the video, maybe we'll grow the channel, maybe not. But I guess we can see if the algorithm will help us. All right, let's turn this up.